You know the sensation perfectly. It almost always starts at night. You are exhausted, you finally lay down to sleep, but the moment you stop moving, your feet feel like they are walking on fire. Even the weight of a single bedsheet touching your toes feels like sandpaper rubbing against a raw open wound. It is not just a numbness anymore, it is a sharp, burning, electric tingling that relentlessly moves from your toes up toward your knees in a specific stalking pattern. You might look at your feet and they look normal, or even feel freezing cold to the touch, yet inside they are screaming with heat. And what happens next is the trap. You go to your doctor, desperate for sleep, and the mainstream medical system usually gives you two devastating options. First, they tell you it is idiopathic, which is just fancy medical speak for we have no idea why this is happening. Or, they tell you it is just an irreversible consequence of getting older. They hand you a prescription for Gabapentin or Lyrica, drugs designed to sedate your brain and simply mute the pain signals, leaving you groggy and disconnected, but never actually fixing the problem. You are told to manage your blood sugar, yet millions of you are suffering from this burning right now even though your blood sugar is technically controlled, or maybe you are only pre-diabetic. This approach fails because it is treating the smoke, not the fire. We are going to prove today that your nerves are not dying from a mystery disease, they are suffocating. You are facing a specific bioenergetic crisis. Your nerve cells have switched from a clean energy source to a dirty engine that is pumping out a toxic exhaust called methylglyoxal. Your inability to lose this pain isn't a lack of medication, it is a hidden intracellular thiamine deficiency that is locking your cells in this toxic state. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a specific Trojan Horse nutrient can unlock the door, flush out the toxicity, and finally stop the burning. To understand why this is happening, we have to look under the hood of your biology. Your nerve cells are incredibly high maintenance. To function properly and send signals from your feet to your brain, they demand massive amounts of energy, or ATP. In a healthy body, you eat carbohydrates, they break down into glucose, and that glucose enters the cell. But, and this is the critical part, before that glucose can become energy, it has to pass through a specific gatekeeper enzyme called the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, or PDC. Think of this PDC gate like the security entrance to a high-tech factory. When you have enough nutrients, specifically thiamine or vitamin B1, the gate opens smoothly, the fuel flows in, and your mitochondria burn it cleanly. But in your current state, this gate is locked tight. It is rusted shut due to a chronic lack of thiamine and high inflammation. And because the fuel cannot enter the engine, your cells are forced to switch to a primitive backup generator known as anaerobic glycolysis. Let's visualize this so you can see exactly why you are in pain. Imagine your nerve cell is a long, sleek, high-speed tunnel. In a healthy state, the mitochondria are these glowing, bean-shaped engines emitting a clean, cool blue light. That is the energy of life. Everything flows smoothly through the gate. But now, look at what is happening inside your nerves. The gate is rusted shut. The sugar you eat cannot get in to be burned, so it starts piling up outside the door. It doesn't just sit there, it begins to ferment and rot. It turns into a thick, sticky black sludge. This sludge is dangerous because it starts emitting a toxic exhaust. We call this black smoke, but the scientific name is methylglyoxal, or MgO. This MgO is highly corrosive. As this black smoke fills the tunnel of your nerve cell, it starts attacking the walls. The protective insulation around your nerves, known as the myelin sheath, begins to melt and blister. It is exactly like stripping the rubber coating off a live electrical wire. The raw copper wire underneath is now exposed to the elements. This is why a simple cotton sheet feels like sandpaper. Your electrical wires are naked and short-circuiting. Inside the cell, those healthy bean-shaped mitochondria are choking on the smoke. They turn into cracked, fragmented shards, unable to produce power. If you let this dirty engine run for another year, the damage moves from temporary to structural. This black smoke acts like a chemical solvent, literally dissolving the tight junctions that hold your nerve structure together. This leads to something terrifying called the dying back phenomenon. Because the nerve can't sustain its energy at the furthest point from the heart, your toes, it physically retracts. It dies back toward the knee, causing permanent loss of sensation and balance. And the scariest part? This creates metabolic memory. Even if you cut out all the sugar tomorrow, the fire keeps burning because the engine itself is broken. Biochemistry doesn't lie. We know this is happening because of advanced imaging. A study using corneal confocal microscopy looked at the nerves in the eyes of people who were only pre-diabetic. It found that small nerve fiber damage was already present in over 21% of them. That proves the damage starts years before a doctor ever diagnoses you with diabetes. Furthermore, research confirms that this toxic MGO directly activates the TRPA1 receptors. These are the exact same pain receptors that light up when you eat wasabi or get mustard oil on your skin. Your nerves aren't just confused, they are being chemically scorched from the inside out. Here is the cross-pillar connection that changes everything. We need to pivot because your nerve pain is actually a vascular problem in disguise. You see, nerves are not just floating wires, they are living tissues that need oxygen, and they have their own tiny, microscopic blood supply called the vasa nervorum, or literally, the vessels of the nerves. And here is the aha moment: the same black smoke, that toxic methylglyoxal we talked about, doesn't just burn the nerve wire, it attacks the lining of these tiny arteries feeding the nerve. Let's trace the domino effect, step by step, so you can see exactly how the trap was set. It starts with the root cause. You consume high carbohydrates or sugar over a lifetime. This demands massive amounts of thiamine to process the fuel, eventually depleting your body's stores. Without thiamine, the clean engine fails, and the cell starts pumping out that toxic exhaust, MGO and lactic acid. Now, watch what happens to the blood vessels. This toxic exhaust causes something called endothelial hyperplasia. That is a clinical term for the thickening of the vessel walls. Imagine a garden hose, where the rubber gets thicker and thicker on the inside until the hole for the water is barely the size of a pinprick. The vessels swell shut. This cuts off the oxygen supply. Your nerves are screaming, in pain not just because they are damaged, but because they are literally suffocating. In medicine, we call this ischemia. You are feeling the biological equivalent of strangulation in your feet. Now, you might be thinking, but I already take a vitamin, B complex, or a multivitamin, so I can't be deficient. This is the single biggest myth keeping you sick. The standard vitamin B1, known as thiamine hydrochloride, found in almost every cheap supplement on the shelf, is water-soluble. It is poorly absorbed. To get into your cells, it requires specific transporters like a revolving door called THGR1. Here is the problem. Chronic inflammation and gut issues, which almost everyone with metabolic damage has, block these transporters. The revolving door is jammed. You can swallow all the standard B1 you want, and you can even have normal levels in your blood work, but your nerve cells are starving to death. The nutrient cannot get inside where the engine is. Because your nerve cells are wrapped in a fatty layer called the myelin sheath, using a water-soluble vitamin to fix them is like trying to mix oil and water. It simply bounces off. You don't need more vitamins, you need a delivery system that can penetrate that fat layer and bypass the broken door entirely. So, how do we rebuild the engine while it's still running? We have to clear the sludge, unlock the gate, and seal the wires. First, we must stop pouring gasoline on the fire. You need to immediately eliminate the dirty keto fats from your kitchen. I am talking specifically about soybean, corn, and canola oil. These industrial seed oils are loaded with omega-6 fatty acids that are highly unstable. When you consume them, they oxidize rapidly inside your body, chemically mimicking the exact same dirty engine damage caused by sugar. They make your pain receptors hypersensitive. You cannot heal a burn while you are rubbing sandpaper on it. Instead, you want to fuel your body with thiamine-rich superfoods like pork loin, macadamia nuts, and sunflower seeds, and load up on omega-3s from wild-caught salmon to start calming the inflammation in those tiny blood vessels we talked about. But here is the hard truth. Food alone is often not enough to reverse years of accumulated damage. You need a therapeutic intervention to break the deadlock. You need the Trojan Horse. The specific nutrient hero you need is called Benfotiamine. We recommend a dosage of 300 to 600 milligrams daily. Benfotiamine is a synthetic, fat-soluble derivative of vitamin B1. Because it is fat-soluble, it has a superpower. It does not need that broken revolving door to get into the cell. It slips right through the greasy membrane of your nerve cells via passive diffusion. It creates a back door into the engine. Once it is inside, the magic happens. It converts into active thiamine and forces that rusted PDC gate wide open. This immediately stops the production of the black smoke. But it does something even more important. It activates a powerful enzyme called transketolase. Think of transketolase as a biological vacuum cleaner. It moves through the cell and literally sucks up the toxic methylglyoxal sludge that has been scorching your nerves. To turbocharge this repair, pair it with 600 milligrams of alpha-lipoic acid and a high-quality magnesium supplement, which is required to turn the key in the ignition. Finally, we need to deal with the debris. Those cracked, broken mitochondria we saw in the animation, we need to clear them out. The best way to do this is by implementing a 16-8 intermittent fasting schedule. By eating within an 8-hour window and fasting for 16 hours, you trigger a process called mitophagy. This is your body's recycling program. It identifies the broken, dirty engines and digests them to build brand new, efficient ones. You now have the blueprint to fix the engine inside your nerves. But there is one more variable we haven't touched. We are fixing the engine, but what about the external environment? Did you know that a specific type of light you are exposed to in your own living room might be spiking your blood sugar while you sleep, sabotaging your recovery before you even wake up? We are going to decode that invisible threat in the next video.